I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting a movement of people. It's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the poor where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds with deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify. When you and God in time are best aligned.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the Fred Hamptons, the Harriets, the chariots that carry us to various areas that marry us to progress. Yeah, we the harvest, the lovely days and midnight marauders. Even through charges and days of darkness, no, we in the hands of the greatest artists. I see it in the waters, I see it in our daughters. They could be bridges that know no borders. For so long, them folk try to ignore us. So we got the ballot boxes to vote for us. Peace to Stacey and the people of Georgia, who galvanize so that we can move forward. Steps are ordered with the presence of mind. Everything's more beautiful in time.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent. I'm in touch, and so follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. You can also download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. Am I sounding better, y'all? I'm feeling better. I've been really managing these allergies, and so far so good. So far so good. And so it's amazing what a little bit of tea will do, a little bit of rest will do, and every single allergy medication that is out there. And so thanks to everybody who sent me over little suggestions. I really appreciate it. What a day it's been. A little bit later in the hour, we'll be talking with Fox News contributor Richard Fowler. We'll be talking to him about some of the fallout related to former President Joe Biden's recent cancer diagnosis. We'll also talk about some news that's hot off the press related to campaign salaries on the Biden campaign. Some very distressing news to share there. And then a little bit later, former LA mayor turned candidate for California governor Antonio Villaraigosa put out a statement related to Biden and this new sort of tell-all book, Original Sin, that is creating quite a bit of headlines. And so we'll be talking about that later this hour. And then in the second hour, we'll be talking with Portia Allen Kyle, the interim executive director of Color of Change. We'll be talking about a recent bit of news that we all should be dialed into. But now it's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, what a difference change in administration makes. The NBC News is reporting that the FDA says that COVID vaccines likely not available for healthy kids and adults this fall. That's right. The Food and Drug Administration is planning major changes for how COVID vaccines are rolled out and who will be able to get their updated shots this fall. In a paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine, the FDA Commissioner, Dr. Marty Makary, and Dr. Vinay Prasad, the FDA's new vaccine chief, wrote that any new COVID vaccine now must undergo placebo-controlled clinical trials, meaning some people would get the actual vaccine while others get an inactive substance like a saline shot to compare results. At a planned FDA vaccine panel meeting on Thursday, the agency advisors are expected to advise the vaccine makers which strains to target for new shots. The new clinical trial requirement isn't expected to affect the fall rollout for older adults and other people at risk for severe illness because drug makers are exempt from additional testing for those groups. And so if you are an older adult or if you're high risk, you don't have to worry about this. But for the rest of us, we have to worry about that. The original COVID shots, you might remember, from Pfizer and Moderna, approved in the late 2020, went through placebo-controlled trials. Then the drug makers, they transitioned to smaller studies to test how well the updated shots triggered an immune response against the current variants circulating in the U.S. In the journal article, Makary and Prasad, they cast doubt on the flu vaccine model, noting that only a quarter of people in the U.S. get the updated shots each year, including less than a third of healthcare workers. And so that is a big difference. It's a big difference. And that's for the people who went out and got the shots. The majority of folks got their shots in arms, but that major change coming from the FDA. All right, moving along. Maintenance workers charged in the New Orleans jail escape. They said that the inmates threatened to shank him. That's right. The inmate said, "We're going to shank you if you don't help us get out of here." NBC News is also reporting that this maintenance worker charged in connection with the New Orleans Parish jail escape said an inmate threatened to shank him if he didn't help. That's what court documents are saying. Sterling Williams, who's only 33 years old, allegedly cut off the water so that inmates could pull the toilet from the wall. That's what the Louisiana Attorney General, Liz Morrell, announced in a press release today. 10 inmates escaped from the Orleans Parish Justice Center early Friday morning. Williams is being held in a detention center on charges of being the principal to simple escape and malfeasance in office. Williams identified the inmate who allegedly threatened him as Antoine Massey. According to an affidavit for an arrest warrant, Massey escaped and has not yet been captured. Attorney information was not immediately available for Massey. A photo released by the sheriff's office last week showed a hole in the wall behind the toilet with the phrase such as "too easy LOL" and "we innocent" written above it. And so that's the way it was going down in Orleans Parish down in Louisiana. Man threatened to shank him. And clearly he believed it. Hence why they are out on the loose. Moving along from Louisiana to Chicago, where the Chicago Tribune is reporting that teen SNAP curfew plan, it advances as a sponsor gives more power to the police. Chicago aldermen advanced a measure today designed to curb so-called teen takeovers with curfews after the ordinance's lead sponsor made a pivotal tweak to the measure. Downtown Alderman Brian Hopkins substituted a new version of his teen curfew ordinance that places the power to declare these 3-hour snap curfews targeting specific areas solely in the hands of Chicago's police superintendent. He had previously proposed that the curfew power be shared by the superintendent and the deputy mayor for community safety, requiring both to agree. Aldermen in the Public Safety Committee, Hopkins chairs, voted 10-7 to send it to the full city council, capping weeks of wrangling over the city's curfew policy and whether giving police this new power will work to stop violence that has sometimes occurred at the teen gatherings. The council could vote on this ordinance as soon as Wednesday. And so I always think it's very important to pay attention to ordinances like this because now you see it in Chicago. It may pop up in other major cities and even medium-sized cities across the country as a reform that people may get behind. And so lots of eyes on what the Chicago City Council will do related to this measure that, again, it gives more power, not less, more power to the police. So instead of splitting this decision for snap curfews between the deputy mayor and the police superintendent, it says, nope, the police superintendent would have this new power. We shall see how that works. Finally, speaking of our kids, did you know 500 million young people will be obese or overweight by 2030? The Guardian is reporting that while adolescent mortality has declined by more than a quarter over the past 2 decades, comprehensive analysis of global data calculated that in 5 years, at least half of the world's 10 to 24-year-olds will be living in countries where preventable health problems such as HIV and AIDS, early pregnancy, depression, and poor nutrition pose a daily threat to their health, well-being, and life chance. Young people's health has reached a tipping point, according to the authors, and by 2030, 464 million young people will be living with obesity or overweight, up 143 million from 2015. This is according to a report by the Lancet Commission on Adolescent Health and Well-Being Forecast. The burden of excess weight is already being disproportionately felt in high-income countries, in Latin America and the Caribbean and North Africa and the Middle East, where more than a third of 10 to 24-year-olds are living with being overweight or obese. The report also found a significant decline in young people's mental health and said that the climate crisis posed significant new threats to their health. And so, on this show, we oftentimes talk about health, not just from the neck up, but the neck down. And based on this report, when we look around the world by 2030, we're not doing so well with that health from the neck up or neck down. And so, you can talk about the innovation that is afoot in this country and around the world and the possibilities that AI offers and so many other technologies. But remember, health is wealth. Health is wealth. And so if we don't have health, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? My brother and sound engineer, Andy, messaged me, talking about snacks in the schools. Maybe we need to take snacks out of the schools. Or maybe we need to make healthier snacks more available. Maybe we need to do a better job getting from behind the screen and, taking a walk, taking a run, increasing our physical activity. I'm sure there's a laundry list of things that we could do outside of getting the shot. But all that requires a change in culture, a change in the way that we view wellness in this country. And clearly, it's not just us, in other parts of the world as well. And so, another discussion for another time. But when we come forward, I'm going to tell you all about what I believe is the biggest headline coming out of the White House today. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast. Oh my God. But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say.
Let's do this.
Let's get it on.
On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the 2nd consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Took the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Love you. Love you.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. If you own a timeshare, don't miss this public service announcement from Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group.
If you receive an unsolicited phone call or mail piece to discuss selling, renting, or especially canceling your timeshare, don't fall for it. If you really want out of your timeshare, hang the phone up immediately or throw that mail piece in the trash and contact your timeshare resort or Wesley Financial Group for assistance with your timeshare. As the only Inc. 500 timeshare cancellation company, our knowledge, experience, and results has made Wesley a trusted resource for over 40,000 families we've helped get out of their timeshare. Give us a call and I'll send you our timeshare exit information kit free with the straight facts about your timeshare and all of your options for cancellation.
Call for your free info kit, 800-511-2112. That's 800-511-2112. 800-511-2112.
Hit me.
National News The Consequence. Informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and boy, oh boy, was there news made at the White House today. I'm not sure if you all saw it, but if you didn't, promises made, promises kept. That's what President Trump said during today's Oval Office announcement of a $175 billion plan to build a Golden Dome U.S. missile defense system, first envisioned by MAGA President Ronald Reagan over 40 years ago. Now, President Trump told reporters that the One Big Beautiful Bill, that's what he keeps calling it, it's also known as the Reconciliation Bill, is currently being debated on Capitol Hill. that's going to include a $25 billion down payment for this project, which he says will be done by the end of his term. Now, asked by a reporter if the Pentagon asked for this, the president said that they wanted it after he suggested it. It's worth noting that the president could be heard saying no cuts to Medicaid as reporters were being ushered out of the Oval Office. Now, juxtapose that against what the president said this morning. This morning, President Trump, he paid House Republicans a visit on Capitol Hill and afterwards told reporters, quotes, "We're not doing any cutting of anything meaningful. The only thing that we're cutting is waste, fraud, and abuse. With Medicaid, waste, fraud, and abuse. There's tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. We have illegal aliens that are multiple killers with multiple murder records getting Medicaid." That's what he said on Capitol Hill just this morning. Now, let me put it to you this way. In light of Trump's morning and afternoon remarks to reporters, begs the question, was the timing of the Golden Dome U.S. missile defense announcement, was that about promises kept? Or was it intended to distract the American people from promises broken? Specifically, major cuts to Medicaid. What do you think? Get in a more perfect group chat on YouTube and tell me what you think about this. And for those of our leaders, learners, and listeners that are listening on the KBLA app, open up the open mic feature and tell me what you think about this. Weigh in on this. Look, these Medicaid cuts are something serious. We're talking about something like $800 billion in potential cuts to Medicaid. Do you know 40% of births in this country are folks on Medicaid? You know how many people rely on Medicaid as a lifeline? And so to say that, oh, well, we're not doing anything with Medicaid, we're only getting rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. Is that $800 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse? So you went from saying we're not touching Medicaid to now we're getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, what do you think? Y'all be the judge. Let me also just add to this. USA Today reporting, don't F around with Medicaid. President Trump warned the right flank of House Republicans not to touch Medicaid any further, urging GOP lawmakers to rally behind what he's calling, again, his big, beautiful bill to carry out his domestic agenda. The president specifically said, don't F around with Medicaid, end quote. And that's according to multiple Republican lawmakers that were present at the meeting. And it's also worth noting that Trump's message, it came as members of the House Freedom Caucus have pushed for deeper cuts to Medicaid to support the legislation, which Trump and Republican House leadership hope to pass through the budget process of reconciliation sooner than later. Trump said that Republicans should focus only on eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse from Medicaid. Democrats have slammed this proposal as drastic cuts to benefits programs to finance tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans. Again, what do y'all believe? Who do you believe? You really think he's just going to root out waste, fraud, and abuse? Why didn't he put a number to it? If he said, okay, we're not going to get rid of Medicaid, we're not going to cut Medicaid, we're just going to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. How much? Is there a number? Is there waste, fraud, and abuse that independent parties have said, yeah, that's waste, fraud, and abuse? I don't know. Meanwhile, back home in California, the Latino Legislative Caucus is on Governor Newsom's case because of his proposed Medi-Cal cuts. And so for folks who may be less familiar, Medi-Cal is essentially Medicaid in California. The Latino legislators, they criticized Governor Gavin Newsom's proposed budget cuts to Medi-Cal Monday afternoon, saying that the plan to freeze enrollment and charge premiums for those adult immigrants without documentation already enrolled was a betrayal of California's promise to protect the vulnerable. Legislative pushback for the May budget revisions released by Governor Newsom last week, it comes after the governor announced an additional $12 billion budget shortfall for the upcoming fiscal year. State Senator Maria Elena Durazo said that the plan to charge adult undocumented immigrants $100 per month for Medi-Cal was a form of redlining. And Assemblymember Mia Bonta said that she doubted the two-tiered system was constitutional. The influential Latino Legislative Caucus has staunchly opposed cuts to Medi-Cal, the state's expanded version of the federal Medicaid program. The objection came despite California expecting decreased revenue, in part due to President Trump's tariff policies and increases in state spending, including the recent expansion of Medi-Cal coverage to cover all eligible Californians, including immigrants lacking documentation. And so, look, with these likely cuts to Medicaid and proposed cuts to Medi-Cal, people across the country are going to feel this, and especially people in California will not be insulated from the worst of this if this becomes law. This is why now is the time to call the people who represent you in the California state legislature. You should be calling your state senator, your state assembly member, and you should be calling your U.S. representative. You should be calling Congress to register your thoughts, your feelings about potential cuts to Medicaid, because make no mistake about it, it's going to impact our communities enormously. When we come forward, we're switching gears and we're talking about the continued fallout related to President Biden's cancer diagnosis. We'll also talk about a recent statement that former LA mayor turned candidate for California governor Antonio Villaraigosa released, calling Kamala Harris to account for what she knew about Joe Biden's condition. We're going to dig into all of this with Fox News contributor Richard Fowler when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The Department of Justice is investigating Black Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson over possible race-based hiring. The probe follows remarks he made at a Southside church where he listed Black officials in his administration.
The deputy mayor is a Black woman. Department of Planning and Development is a Black woman.
The DOJ says there's reasonable cause to believe hiring decisions may have violated the Civil Rights Act. 4 of 10 Black inmates who escaped from Orleans Parish Jail on Friday have been caught. Police say the other 6 are still in New Orleans and will be sent to Angola once captured. And a federal trial is underway for 2 suspects accused of staging a fake hate crime to boost support for Yemi Mobolade during his 2023 mayoral run. Prosecutors say they burned a cross and defaced a campaign sign. Mobolade, now Colorado Springs' first Black mayor, denies involvement. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Woodland Hills. It's a crash on the 101 northbound coming up on Winnetka. They've got all lanes stopped right now to get things situated. Big delays loading up all the way from Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and it's giving the southbound side plenty to look at. That drive's loading up away from Liberty Canyon Road. It's also tough on the 405 as the southbound slowing out of West LA from Sunset all the way towards the 605 northbound slowing. Also a mess out of Culver City from just about Washington Boulevard heading to the the 5 merge into Sylmar.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and more for a child in poverty. And there are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year and their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The balance of power in the NBA is going through a major transition. This is the 7th straight year the NBA will not have a back-to-back champion. And 3 of the 4 teams remaining in the playoffs have not won a championship: Minnesota, Oklahoma City, and Indiana. The last time New York won the NBA title was in 1973 when they beat the Lakers in 5 games. Minnesota is the only team among the 4 that has never advanced to the NBA Finals. Indiana got there in 2000, but lost in 6 games to the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq. OKC's only appearance in the NBA Finals was in 2012. They lost in 5 games to LeBron and the Miami Heat. That OKC roster featured 3 potential Hall of Famers: James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant. OKC and Minnesota jump it up tonight in Game 1 in the Western Conference Finals. Game 1 for New York and Indiana in the East is Wednesday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community, educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit CASMPvolunteer.org. Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and delighted to welcome back to the show my friend, our friend, Richard Fowler. He is Fox News contributor and Forbes contributing writer. How are you, Richard?
I'm good. How are you? Happy Tuesday.
I'm good. Happy Tuesday. I'm not so sure how good President Biden is feeling at the moment. The USA Today reporting that Joe Biden was last screened for prostate cancer in 2014 before his diagnosis. Joe Biden's last known blood test to screen for prostate cancer, again, was 2014, 7 years before he became president. That's according to a spokesperson for the former president. Of course, Biden was diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer on Friday, May 16th. And a lot of people are reacting to this because people think, okay, if you're president of the United States, you get the best health care anybody could get. And the fact that he wasn't being screened for this, it comes as a surprise to most people. Talk to us about the politics of Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis, because there are a lot of people out there claiming that, well, how did he not know? And, was this a part of the cover up? Were they keeping this from us too? Well, this news today, I think, throws a little cold water on that, no?
Well, I think one, it's worth pointing out that when you talk to a lot of medical professionals and, urologists and folks who are in this field, they will tell you that are after around the age of, I think it's 70 or so, it is not within, respectable protocols to sort of check men for prostate cancer. To be honest with you, they don't really actually start checking men for prostate cancer until about the age of about 35, 36. So you can have early prostate. There's a lot of young men who are now getting early prostate cancer, and they're not being checked because you're not getting checked when you're in your 20s or your 30s, or your early 30s rather. With that being said, I think what's happening here for former President Biden and the team around him is with the sort of entry of all of these post-presidential books. Leading the pack, this book by Jake Tapper, which sort of has called the last year or two of the Biden administration or about Joe Biden's time in the White House as a cover-up because of what we all watched on July 9th, which was the first presidential debate of 2024, was something that most Americans cannot unsee. What we saw was a president that, according to the White House at the time, was sick. And this is what they said, that he was like, had a cold and, he had just come off of a long European tour. And what we saw was a very sick president who also, too, was high up there in age, and the American public couldn't unsee it. And as a result of them not being able to unsee it, it almost led to, one would argue, the demise of the Joe Biden candidacy and the rise of the Kamala Harris candidacy, which ultimately ended in the defeat and the election of Donald Trump. And so I think there's a lot of folks asking a lot of questions of how did we get here? How was it possible that, one, Donald Trump won, but that Joe Biden was even running? And I think everybody's trying to search for answers. And I think, this cancer news comes as people are trying to search for answers. So people are saying, well, there goes fire. So there had to be fire back then, and this has got to be the same fire. And actually, we don't really know if it was the same fire and if it was not, or if it was not the same fire. And the only people that actually do know that information, I would argue, or I would suppose, is the Biden family and probably those advisors that are very close to the president of the United States. And the rest of us, including the two of us here, we're just speculating whether we think it's true or whether we think it's not true, because we don't know.
Well, speaking of those advisors that were closest to him, Axios reporting just this afternoon that Biden top aide made about $4 million on failed campaign. This was one of the revelations in the new book that you just mentioned, the book by Jake Tapper of CNN and Alex Thompson of Axios. Mike Donnellan, a top advisor to former President Biden, was paid about $4 million to work on the 2024 Biden campaign at the president's insistence. That's what CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios' Alex Thompson write in their book, Original Sin. Why this matters, some might ask. Well, the sum was, it was a lot. It was actually higher in magnitude, higher in pay than other top aides, including campaign chair Jen O'Malley Dillon, who made $300,000, and
which is
it
still
illustrates
a lot
the standing held by Biden's inner circle of advisors. Oh my goodness, as if the news could not get any worse. Richard, what do you make of this claim that Mike Donilon was paid millions of dollars for a campaign that ended abruptly?
Well, look, and I think these two stories are connected, right? Because you have a story where you see an aging president, a president, like I said, on July 9th, a date that most Americans cannot unsee. And you want to ask yourself now, how was it possible that this happened, right? How was it possible that his inner circle didn't say, Mr. President, I have to be honest with you. I'm not sure if you can handle the rigor of a presidential campaign against, former President Trump, who ran the longest campaign in American history, a campaign that he literally launched the day he lost. And now we know that Mike Donilon, who was one of the chief campaign advisors, was getting paid $4 million. So I'm speculating here, but I would say, why would you want to stop the gravy train if you're at the front of it, right? And I think the same goes for Jen O'Malley Dillon, who had, a lot of power. One of her former firms was top bill. If you look at some of the FEC filings of this campaign, and both the campaign as well as the Democratic Party, which was had about $1 billion, was roughly a $2 billion campaign between the two entities. Her former company was probably one of the top grossing companies on this campaign, right? So then you're asking yourself the second question of, so why didn't you say anything? Well, if my company's making a lot of money off of this, placing ads and all the other things, why would I say anything about this? And so then you have to ask yourself the question, were they the best advisors to the president? And then I will go even further. Were they the best advisors to the new candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris? Did they offer her the best advice? Were they loyal to her? These are all questions that we should be asking.
These are all questions that are not going away anytime soon. Again, according to Axios' reporting, they argue that Biden's top aides should have had the courage to confront him about the huge risk of running for a second term and not profited so much from what was ultimately an unsuccessful campaign. Some former Biden aides are quietly trying to separate themselves from the Biden reelection effort. Donilon had rejected the notion that Biden's acuity and judgment declined during his tenure, calling it an impression fueled by the media. But Richard, I can't help but wonder, to your point about the gravy train, how many of these folks were really just sort of taking advantage of the situation, right? Assuming that Biden was fine, that there was no, cognitive decline that was afoot. Yeah, was he getting older? Sure, but was there cognitive decline? Let's assume for the moment that there was no cognitive decline. Part of what they're suggesting in this book, Original Sin, is that this inner circle was pretty airtight and had the full confidence of the president almost until the very end, when he decided to pull out of running for a second term. How funky is the stench of anybody that is close to these folks? How funky is that stench going to get? And how much courage do you think the Democratic Party will have to say anybody that was associated with this effort need not apply?
I think that's a really valuable question. I think that question happens today as the Catalyst Report. And for folks who don't know what that is, the Catalyst Report is a report that Democrats have been waiting on for a number of months because it goes through many of the voter files and the voter data from all the respective states. And in a sum total sort of talks about what voters actually did on election day. And what it talks about, and I'm going to give it its broad brush because then we have to go to commercial break, but it talks about how across the board, Democrats lost in every one of their traditional bases, including Black women, including Black men, including Latino women, including Latino men, in every one of those categories, including 30 million Americans. Mind you, there's some of those folks who died, who sat home from the 2020 election to the 2024 election. So 30 million less people said, we're not going to vote, right? So knowing all of that, and also knowing that your top two people, one of them gets $4 million cash, right, in salary. The other one gets $300,000, and her former firm is one of the top grossing firms during this election. You're then caused to ask a lot of questions. So then what was your plan to get these voters back? What was your plan to engage these voters? And just don't say, oh, well, we only had 107 days and Kamala Harris was unpopular. And, oh, well, she was a black woman, so she lost. You had 2 years to run a campaign and she was going to be on the ticket regardless. So you had to have some sort of plan for these things because you knew this was going, like you knew some of this was sort of inevitable. So that means you had no plan and you just took the money. At least that's and I'm speculating, like I said, but that's my 30,000 foot view.
Well, let me just say to Mike Donnellan, to Jen O'Malley Dillon, and to folks who were part of the leadership of that campaign, you have an open invitation to join us right here on A More Perfect Union to share your point of view. If there's something that we're missing, we invite you to share it with the masses. I'm sure a number of our leaders, learners, and listeners, including donor activists across California, across the country, want to hear from you. We don't want to, just sort of, lean into any one source to understand what happened. We want to hear directly from the folks involved. And so open invitation. When we come forward, the Los Angeles mayor, former mayor turned Democratic candidate for California governor, Antonio Villaraigosa, is raising questions. What did you know and when did you know it? And he's asking two of the most senior officials in the Biden-Harris White House. We'll tell you who they are, and we'll get Richard's take when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine every pregnant person in LA County having the support they deserve. A doula on every block. Doulas provide emotional, physical, and informational support during pregnancy, through labor, and beyond. Medi-Cal now covers doula care. That means you can get the support you need or train to support families in your community. The LA County Medi-Cal Doula Hub is here to help. Learn more and get started today at ladoulahub.com.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
If you need to hire, it seems like the whole process can be exhausting. You search resumes, wait for the right candidates to apply, set up initial interviews. It's a lot of time and work. Well, what if you could meet with qualified candidates for your job the very next day? Now you can with Zip Intro from ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. Zip Intro is super easy to use. You simply pick a time, and it does all the work of finding and scheduling qualified candidates for you. Then you can choose who you want to talk to and meet with great people on back-to-back video calls as soon as the next day. Best of all, you save time and energy.
Try Zip Intro for free right now at this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. Zip Intro. Post jobs today. Talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Once again, go to ZipRecruiter.com/free to try it for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their program. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE 32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We face tragedy, but we don't fall into despair. We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. He's Richard Fowler, Fox News contributor, also a contributing writer to Forbes. And we're digging beyond some of the hottest headlines that are trending. Right before we went on air, Alex Michelson of Fox LA posted to social media this statement from Democratic candidate for California governor Antonio Villaraigosa, raising questions about what former Vice President Kamala Harris and former Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra knew about President Biden's cognitive condition after Original Sin was published recently. His statement reads, quotes, "What I've seen in news coverage and excerpts from the new book, Original Sin, is deeply troubling. At the highest levels of our government, those in power were intentionally complicit or told outright lies in a systemic cover-up to keep Joe Biden's mental decline from the public. Now, we have come to learn this cover-up includes two prominent California politicians who served as California Attorney General, one who is running for governor and another who's thinking about running for governor. Voters deserve to know the truth. What did Kamala Harris and Xavier Becerra know? When did they know it? And most importantly, why didn't either of them speak out? This cover-up directly led to a second Donald Trump term. As a result, all Californians are paying the price. Kamala Harris and Xavier Becerra took an oath of office and were entrusted to protect the American people, but instead, Kamala Harris repeatedly said there was nothing wrong with Biden, and Becerra turned a blind eye. That is a statement from the former LA mayor turned candidate for California governor. Now, look, it's important to emphasize he's a candidate for governor. And if the two biggest names, that one of which is running against you, the other might be running against you, if there's a way to sort of, keep Kamala Harris from jumping in the race, this may be the path in which Antonio Villaraigosa has decided to take. What say you, Richard? Is this just another day in politics, or does the former LA mayor raise an important question?
Listen, as Tamar Braxton famously said, only in love and war. And this is love and war. I mean, the Democratic primary in California and the governor's race is just that. It's love and it's war at the same time. And I think what you see the former LA mayor doing there is a little bit of the war part of this primary campaign, right? He is, like, to your point, he's probably a tier 2 candidate of the candidates. And he's the mayor of LA and former mayor of LA, and he's a tier 2 candidate, which says a lot about what this field is sort of presenting in this moment. And he's trying to do everything in his power to make himself a tier 1 candidate. So he's using much of this sort of news cycle to sort of ask questions that I'm sure that some voters throughout California are probably asking themselves, right? And I think he's asking these questions as some of the excerpts released in Original Sin are citing some of their colleagues, right? I mean, Original Sin cites 3 cabinet secretaries, obviously off the record, obviously,
but not by name,
I was going to say, obviously not by name, off the record, on background, but it still cites them. And the question becomes for the HHS secretary and for the vice president, 2 very, very large roles in the government. HHS has one of the biggest budgets in the federal government. The vice president is somebody who, President Biden has said is in the room right before he makes the big decision. So none of you all saw anything that's referenced in Jake Tapper's book. And if you saw it, did you see something different? Did you see the same? These are the questions that he's asking. I don't have the answer to these questions because I wasn't in the room. I don't manage an agency with the biggest budget. But I think the questions that he's asking are to get himself, 1, for us to talk about him, and 2, to see if he can get either of these candidates on their hind legs to be like, wait a minute, I don't want to talk about this, or I'm trying to avoid talking about this. in an attempt to sort of, make some hay. Or like I said, it's a Democratic primary. So a little bit of love, a little bit of war.
I think it's important that folks make the distinction. And I think, some people might say it's a distinction without a difference. I think there is a difference between someone who is experiencing cognitive decline. We're talking about dementia. We're talking about Alzheimer's, right? Versus someone who's just getting old, somebody who may forget things from time to time, someone where, they may not be as sharp as they used to, but they're still capable of getting their work done, right? And so part of what we've heard from folks in Biden world is, yes, he was older, yes, he moved a little slower, but he was still able to execute the job. And a lot of folks from Biden world saying there has been no one cited in this book that has said that this president had demonstrated a diminished capacity to do the job of president, right? And so I think that's the big question is, was there a moment where he couldn't do the job as president? And thus far, I haven't heard anything.
Look, I think there's another thing that we need to make a delineation and distinction of. It can also be true that over the past 3.5, almost 4 years of his presidency, there was a lot of really good things that got done for the American people. And he could have been experiencing aging and or cognitive decline or whatever it might have been. And we don't know the answer to that until, we get an actual answer from the Biden family. So you can have remarkable legislative achievement, including the semiconductor bill, which has allowed us to create almost 50,000 jobs in this country, a bill to modernize our infrastructure, right? A bill that made the largest investment in America's public schools in American history since the Education and Secondary Act during Lyndon Baines Johnson. That can be true. And what also can be true is what we all saw take place on July 9th, which was a presidential debate and something that we can't unsee, where I started this in the last segment. Both of those things can be true. You can have remarkable accomplishments and also to get sick.
We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to Richard Fowler, our friend, for joining us, giving us a chance to go beyond the headlines. These headlines keep swirling, and I have not seen Democrats provide good enough answers to these questions. I think they will continue to persist until they do. When we come forward in our next hour, we'll be joined with the interim executive director of Color of Change to talk about a story that we're not talking enough about. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Rutgers University has named LSU President William Tate, who is Black, as its 22nd president.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be in this position.
He'll take over July 1st, succeeding Jonathan Holloway. Tate will lead over 69,000 students and a $5 billion budget during a time of deep spending cuts and pressure to scale back DEI programs. Court is adjourned in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial. Testimony came from Cassie's mother, a federal agent, and a male ex-wife dancer. Earlier, Diddy's assistant said Cassie felt trapped due to his control over her career. Rapper Kid Cudi is expected to testify this week. And Louisiana lawmakers passed a bill banning diversity programs in state agencies and public colleges, a key part of Governor Jeff Landry's